Your energy, the whole audience,
He sat alone on a worn-out bench, sandwich in hand, head bowed as the world rushed past him. No entourage, no luxury, just Keanu Reeves, an A-list actor, lost in his own silence. This image, snapped by a stranger, went viral. But what truly caught the world off guard wasn't his humility. It was the sadness behind his eyes, a kind of sorrow that fame couldn't erase. Few knew that long before the red carpets and billion-dollar box office hits, Keanu had already survived abandonment, chaos, and grief, not on the screen, but in his own home. This is not a tale about a celebrity. It's a story of a mother who gave everything, and a father who vanished into the dark.
Born on September 2, 1964 in Beirut, Lebanon, Keanu Charles Reeves entered life far from the red carpets he would one day walk. His origin was shaped not by fame, but by movement and uncertainty. His father, Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr., carried a lineage threaded with Hawaiian, Chinese, English, and Portuguese roots, an echo of distant cultures and history. His mother, Patricia Taylor, was an English performer and costume designer whose passion for creativity would eventually become the quiet heartbeat of her son's future. Their love burned briefly, then disappeared like a match in the wind. When Keanu was only 3, the marriage collapsed. Patricia gathered Keanu and his younger sister, Kim, and began a journey marked by airport terminals, unfamiliar cities, and the fragile hope of stability. From Beirut to Sydney, then New York, and finally Toronto, the Reeves family kept moving, looking for a place where life would stop shifting beneath their feet. Toronto eventually became home, but not peace. Patricia remarried several times, and each marriage brought a new apartment, a new stepfather, and a new attempt at stable life. School offered little refuge. Keanu struggled with dyslexia. Letters and sentences often felt like puzzles designed for someone else. He attended 4 different high schools, including one for performing arts, before dropping out without a diploma. But while classrooms boxed him in, the ice rink set him free. As a hockey goalie, he earned the nickname The Wall, not only for his reflexes, but for a quiet strength forming inside him, unyielding, resilient, shaped by a childhood built on uncertainty. Acting arrived as a new language, one he understood without needing to force the words to make sense. Stage plays, short appearances, auditions, each role gave him space to breathe, to become someone else, to imagine a life where hurt wasn't the foundation. His rise was gentle, organic. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure gave him global recognition, but The Matrix turned him into a cultural monument. Years later, John Wick revealed a raw grief audiences felt in their bones, loss sculpted into performance. Yet fame never owned him. He quietly donated millions to film crews, sat alone on park benches, rode the subway, and walked through life like a man who knew that spotlight is fleeting, but kindness is eternal. His calm, humble presence did not grow from comfort. It was born from loss, struggle, and a father who disappeared long before the world learned his son's name. Keanu Reeves did not become beloved because fame embraced him. He became beloved because pain shaped him, and he refused to let it turn him cold.
For much of his life, Keanu Reeves was defined not only by who he became, but also by the woman who refused to give up on him. Patricia Taylor, his mother, was not born into glamour. Hailing from Hampshire, England, she once worked as a costume designer and performer, navigating the fringes of the entertainment industry. But after meeting Samuel Reeves in Beirut and giving birth to Keanu in 1964, Her life would become less about lights and more about survival. When Samuel left, Patricia was suddenly a single mother with 2 young children and no safety net. With resilience that echoed through every chapter of Keanu's life, she packed up and moved continents. Beirut faded into memory as she took her children first to Sydney, then to New York, and finally to Toronto. She worked tirelessly, sewing, designing, and taking odd jobs behind the scenes of film and theater productions. Each costume she crafted helped build the invisible stage for her son's future. Their homes were modest, their budgets were tight, but Patricia filled those small rooms with warmth and creativity. She painted old furniture, turned hand-me-downs into stories, and infused bedtime with tales of dreamers and kings. Though the cities changed, the husbands changed, the rules changed, Patricia remained constant. She never forced Keanu to become anything. She only gave him space to imagine everything. Meanwhile, Keanu's father became a fading silhouette. Their last meeting came when Keanu was 13. After that, Samuel vanished, not with a bang, but with the heavy silence of a man slowly consumed by addiction. He was later arrested in Hawaii for heroin possession. Any remaining connection between father and son snapped completely. In interviews, Keanu rarely speaks of his father. When he does, the words are clipped. Careful. "I don't know the man," he once said. There is no rage, no bitterness, only a quiet, painful distance. The absence of his father wasn't filled with anger. It simply became a silent room in the architecture of his memory. But Patricia, she left a legacy that shaped every layer of him. One winter in Toronto, when they couldn't afford heating, she boiled water and wrapped it in cloth, placing the bottles at her children's feet to keep them warm at night. Keanu once recalled that moment not as suffering, but as love. She nurtured creativity over conformity. When Keanu gravitated toward acting, she didn't resist. Despite their limited means, she found ways to enroll him in classes and encouraged him to pursue what made him feel alive. And when he dropped out of school to chase that dream, she trusted him. Even while juggling multiple jobs, Patricia never spoke ill of Samuel in front of her children. That silence, measured and intentional, was a lesson in dignity. She became both mother and father. She showed up to parent-teacher conferences, cheered at hockey games, and quietly supported his most life-defining choices. As Keanu's fame grew, Patricia remained in the background, occasionally appearing on red carpets, but never stepping into the spotlight. Their relationship, rarely exploited by tabloids, was rooted in mutual respect and deep, wordless understanding. When people speak of Keanu Reeves with reverence, his kindness, humility, emotional intelligence, it all traces back to Patricia, the woman who once sat sewing late into the night while her children dreamed. She wasn't famous, but in her quiet courage, she raised a legend.
There was no dramatic final moment, no heartfelt reconciliation, no last-minute phone call filled with forgiveness. When Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr., Keanu Reeves's estranged father, passed away in 2018, he did so quietly, in near anonymity, far from the son whose life he had shaped more through absence than presence. Samuel's unraveling began decades earlier. Once a geologist with promising intellect, his path derailed after the breakdown of his marriage to Patricia Taylor in the late 1960s. Drugs became his escape. Heroin, cocaine, substances that hollowed out the man he once was. In 1992, he was sentenced to 10 years in a Hawaiian prison for drug possession. He served only 2, but his life never truly returned. There were no career comebacks, no second acts, just a long, slow drift into obscurity. By the time he died, Samuel Reeves was already a ghost, not in body, but in presence. He had not seen Keanu in decades. Their last encounter occurred when Keanu was just 13. After that, Samuel simply vanished. No birthday calls, no letters, no milestones shared. In a world that watches every move of its stars, the absence was almost surreal. For Keanu, the death did not arrive with shock. It arrived like a shadow, quiet, heavy, already known. In many ways, he had lost his father long ago. The moment Samuel walked away from his family, the boy who would become Keanu Reeves was forced to grow up with a space in his heart that no success would ever fill. There are no reports of Keanu attending the funeral, no statements, no tributes, just silence. But within that silence lived a kind of mourning, the mourning of what could have been. Friends close to Keanu noted a shift in his mood during that time. Not anger, not breakdown, but stillness, as if something he had long kept buried had been quietly confirmed by death itself. There were no legal battles, no inheritance stories, no scandals surrounding Samuel's passing, just a death certificate in Hawaii and a handful of fading memories. The world barely noticed. For the public, it was a footnote. But for Keanu, it was the final page of a chapter written in invisible ink. Some local accounts suggest Samuel spent his last years in isolation, drifting between modest rental homes, sometimes spotted near Waikiki beaches, staring silently at the ocean. He never sought media attention, never sold his story. Whether out of shame or surrender, he let go of any claim to the son who had become a legend. Keanu, already burdened by the loss of his stillborn daughter, the tragic death of his partner Jennifer Syme, and the illness of his beloved sister Kim, seemed to fold this final loss into a familiar place within him, a quiet, locked room where pain was not displayed, only carried. In a rare earlier interview, Keanu had said, "I don't think about my dad that much. I mean, he's just not around." A pause followed. Heavy. Not with resentment, but with absence. Samuel's death did not bring closure. It did not heal. It merely confirmed what had long been true. That some relationships never begin, even when blood ties suggest they should. That some fathers disappear, not with violence or cruelty, but with silence so long it erases even memory. And for Keanu, that silence was louder than any goodbye.
There was no grand farewell, no throngs of fans, no televised tributes or candlelit vigils. When Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr. died in 2018, his passing was a whisper, unnoticed by most, unmarked by the public. There was no casket carried through flower-lined aisles, no son standing solemn and black. Just the quiet closing of a door that had, for years, already been shut. Samuel's funeral, if one was held at all, left no trace in the media. No official statement, no photographs, no mention from Keanu Reeves. It was a silence not born from shame, but from a lifetime of distance. Keanu had not spoken to his father in over 30 decades. Their last encounter, when Keanu was just 13, had been a soft ending to a bond that had never truly begun. For Keanu, the funeral wasn't a singular event. It had been happening quietly over the course of his life, in the spaces where a father should have been, in the silences of birthdays missed, in every school performance, every heartbreak, every success that went unshared. When the man who had given him life finally left this world, Keanu didn't need to cry. He had already mourned his father many times before. Each time he realized he wouldn't return. Those who knew Keanu say that during the weeks following Samuel's death, he became more withdrawn, not in a way that disrupted work, but in a way that signaled a shift. A little less laughter, a little more pause between sentences, like someone feeling the final brush of a shadow they had learned to live beside. There was no letter left behind, no last-minute apology, no surprise reconciliation. Samuel's passing came without fanfare, and Keanu's silence mirrored that truth. He did not issue a tribute, not because he didn't care, but perhaps because there was nothing left to say. In Hawaii, death records listed only the basics: name, date, cause. There was no footnote about the estranged son, no acknowledgement that the man buried had once been a father to one of the world's most beloved actors. No reporters attended, no fans gathered. It was the kind of death that passes unnoticed every day. A lonely man, aging in silence, vanishing without echoes. Some believe Keanu had long prepared for this moment, that emotionally the funeral had already happened, not in a chapel, but on a subway bench, in a script that spoke to abandonment, or in a quiet glance out the window of a film set. By the time the final breath was drawn, it was only a confirmation. The goodbye had come decades earlier. There is no public record of where Samuel was laid to rest. No grave for Keanu to visit, no stone etched with memories. His mourning, if it took place, likely happened in moments that no camera could see. Maybe in a walk alone at night. Maybe in silence between takes, maybe not at all. And so the final farewell was not spoken aloud. It was internal, private, unfinished. A funeral without a eulogy. A son who had already buried the hope of reunion long before death arrived.
In the aftermath of his father's quiet death, Keanu Reeves did not speak. He didn't post a tribute, didn't reflect in public, but those close to him said his silence deepened. He became even more protective of his personal life, more careful with his words. For a man already known for his privacy, the shift was subtle but undeniable. The truth is, the impact of Samuel Reeves on Keanu's life had long been written. It wasn't death that changed him, it was abandonment. It was the ache of years without answers, birthdays without calls, triumphs without congratulations. Samuel had left a void, and in that space, Keanu built something far more powerful than resentment. Rather than turning bitter, he turned gentle. The lack of a father's guidance didn't make him hard, it made him deeply empathetic. His pain didn't make him cruel, it made him kind. In roles like Neo and John Wick, audiences didn't just see acting. They saw someone who had lived loss, held grief, and worn heartbreak like a second skin. His characters didn't perform emotion, they remembered it. Keanu never sought fame for glory. He sought work that gave meaning. He refused to surround himself with extravagance. He lived modestly, gave generously, and asked for nothing in return. Crew members received motorcycles. Strangers found unexpected kindness. He never explained it. He just did it. After Samuel's death, there was no visible collapse, because the collapse had happened long ago, when Keanu was 13 and his father walked out of his life. That wound had scarred, then healed quietly. The funeral was not a trigger, it was a confirmation. And yet, even silence leaves footprints. Keanu's choices, on screen and off, are layered with quiet grief. He plays men who carry invisible burdens, who lose and still move forward, who don't need to scream to show their scars. He gravitates toward stories where strength is forged from sorrow and love is often too late. Perhaps that's why the world feels so deeply connected to him. He is not adored for being perfect, he is cherished for being real, for surviving pain without losing compassion, for living through absence and choosing presence anyway. Even in interviews, when asked about family, Keanu always redirected, not to avoid the truth, but to protect it. His silence became a shield, for himself and perhaps for a father he never truly knew. In that restraint was respect, and maybe a quiet kind of forgiveness. Samuel Reeves didn't shape Keanu through love, but through absence, he taught him what love should be. And Keanu, in turn, gave that love to the world.
Some stories don't end with closure. They end with understanding. Keanu Reeves never got the goodbye many children dream of, the chance to hear, "I'm proud of you," from the father who left. But in a world obsessed with spectacle, Keanu chose to live quietly, to grieve privately, to forgive without applause. He carried loss not as a wound, but as a weight, one that shaped his choices, his art, his presence. And in doing so, he became a reflection of something rare, a man who turned pain into peace. Samuel Reeves remains a shadow in Keanu's story. Not a villain, not a hero, just gone. But even in that emptiness, a lesson lingers. Sometimes, the most defining people are the ones who never stayed. And maybe that's why Keanu walks alone. Not because he's lonely, but because he knows the value of stillness. Behind every silence he keeps is a boy who once waited for his father, and a man who became everything his father could not. Have you ever grown from a silence that never broke? If this story moved you, like this video, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more.